lesson, and it goes hand in hand with what Officers Ayam is speaking about in his class and in his comments. Where is Ayam? Is he here yet? Okay, he went to go get his family. Okay. About letting our emotions get the best of us and letting our emotions drive our decision making and our behavior. Because when we let our emotions drive our decision making and our behavior, we allow demons to come in and play off of that and makes everything worse, right? And then with the class that my brother did last night, Officer AHRAYAH right here, his class, right. I told him, I was like, brother, you really did the elders in that class honor, because I'm pretty sure that's exactly how the elders that won that class we brought out. It was a great job. But going along with just the kind of theme of not letting spirits or our emotions or our own self-will drive our behavior, drive our decision making, right? So the title of this class, quite naturally, is having balance in Christ while living in such emotional times, right? So having balance in Christ while living in such emotional times, part one. So more is gonna come down the pipeline. So Officer, if you could start off and read the first commentary.
The commentary reads, it seems that living in this day and age, and as we get closer to Christ's return, people are becoming more and more emotionally unstable to the point to where it has become harder and harder to interact with those around you.
Right. So it says people are becoming more and more emotionally unstable to the point where it's hard to interact around the people around you. So go ahead.
Everyone seems to be so emotional about everything. What is going on in this world and society that is leading mankind to become so unstably emotional? Do the scriptures give us insight on why this emotional condition would exist on such a high level in the end times?
Right, so does the scriptures give us insight on why so much emotional instability in these times? Go ahead.
And do the scriptures give us insight on how to have balance in Christ Yeshua when it comes to dealing with our emotion and emotional situations?
Right, because you'll have the gurus give TED Talks, offer classes and workshops, right, on how to master your mind, how to master your emotions, how to take control back of your life and control your habits and all this other stuff. But we got to understand that it's a spiritual reason why, you know, what you call the atmosphere of Babylon just breeds emotional instability right now. Go ahead.
We hope to answer these questions and more with this lesson.
So we're going to start off with the definition of the word emotion. You read that?
The definition of the word emotion is a conscious mental reaction.
And everybody knows what conscious means, right? Anybody want to throw it out there? What does the word conscious mean? Because you got conscious, then unconscious, right? Mindful, aware, right? Go ahead. So it's you're mindful, you're aware. So it's a mindful or aware mental reaction, a conscious mental reaction. Go ahead.
A conscious mental reaction, such as anger or fear,
and keyword reaction, go ahead,
subjectively experienced as strong feeling usually directed toward a specific object and typically accompanied by psychological and physiological and behavioral changes in the body.
Right, so we got a couple words right there that we might not all be on the same page about what they mean. So subjectively experienced a strong feeling usually directed toward a specific object and typically accompanied by physiological and behavioral changes in the body. So subjective, anybody want to throw that out there? What does subjective mean? Not really, because I made a statement to my wife earlier. What was we talking about? No, when I was like, the creamer, right? The creamer, we was talking about the coffee creamer. And she was like, oh, I bought this terrible stuff. And I was like, well, that's relative. Or I could have been like, oh, that's subjective. So that's a clue. Anybody got a better understanding what subjective might mean now? Your interpretation, yep. Right? So we got a definition here. Make sure we're all on the same page. But what's the opposite of subjective? Objective. And what's something that we lack? Objectivity, right? So let's get objective. You can read from this one first.
The definition of objective, of a person or their judgment, not influenced by personal feelings or opinions in considering and representing facts.
Right, so not influenced by personal feelings or opinions in considering and respecting facts. So let's read this one right here.
Objectivity is a philosophical concept of being...
I know that might be a buzzword, danger word. The red light started coming on. Don't worry about philosophical, because remember, when you want to become the authority or something, you put all these type of labels. No, it's just thinking, all right? So objectivity is, go ahead.
Objectivity is a philosophical concept of being true independently from individual subjectivity caused by perception.
Perception. That's what gets in the way, our own perceptions about things. Go ahead.
Emotions or imagination.
Or imagination. Go ahead.
A proposition is considered to have objective.
That's okay. All right. So objective is the opposite of subjective. Now let's get the definition of subjective.
The definition of subjective: based on or influenced by personal feelings, tastes, or opinions.
Right. So that's a problem. That's an issue. If you're basing your behavior and your decision making on your personal feelings and your personal tastes and ignoring the facts. Because what does Sirach tell us? Many vain opinions have led people astray. We're going to get it. I kind of paraphrase, right? And then it was another word in our definition of emotion. I'm going to go back to it. It says, a conscious mental reaction such as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as strong feelings, usually directed toward a specific object and typically accompanied by physiological and behavioral changes in the body. So anybody we going somewhere with this, definitely, right? We got to break these words down. Anybody got an idea what physiological means? Right, a reaction that's going on within your body. So emotions affect the bodily functions and they affect the behavior. Just like how one of the sisters told me a couple of weeks, you think you might have, Sister Beverly, you think you might have, because her husband was concerned about, because I was sick for like 2 weeks. So there was a saying like, you might think you have stress, what you call in check in your mind, which you can, but the body still shows it. So emotions, feelings, it does affect the body, right? And just a quick, just so you all know where we're going with this, because the emotions, I had in college, my first year in college, trust me, it's going somewhere. My first year in college, I had a business golf class just because I registered late, so it was just whatever to fill up the time. But I struggled to learn how to play golf. But my friend is going to show me, right? So I struggled to learn how to play golf, and it was horrible. I was slicing the ball, in the other people's lane. So it was embarrassing. I got to go and interrupt other people's game and say, sorry, let me get my ball. So that's just how bad I was. But the reason why I was so bad, because I played baseball my whole life. So the mechanics of a baseball swing was just in me. And it's what you call muscle memory. You know what I'm saying? Just like all the sports guys know, like muscle memory on how to react on things. And the military guys, muscle memory, But guess what? It doesn't stop with physical stuff. Which you think it was time to pray? Right. So I'll end this thought right here, then we'll pray. The way you think and the way you usually react to things is in your brain too. and your emotions. It's in your body. Because your body, the chemical reaction, especially if you ever talk to anybody who does drug counseling and things like that, or why it be so hard to get off certain foods, because your body is used to those emotions when you're about to get that reward of the drug or reward of the food, and it's the chemical reactions that happen. So same thing with your emotions. If you're used to reacting with your emotions, your body is addicted to it. That's why it be so hard to change. And guess what? Living in America, you conditioned to just react on emotion. You're not conditioned to think. They can't have anybody thinking up in here. Not in this place. They got to have people who react through emotion. So I'm gonna leave it there with with the emotions and habits and stuff like that, and how it affects your body. Because doing some research, and I want to bring some more stuff out. I want to bring some more stuff out when it comes down to dedication, when it's dedicating our temple, dedicating our body to the Most High. Because just doing some research, especially on the food industry, they're the kingpins when it comes down to manipulating our emotions, right? So let's get the first set of scriptures. Remember, the title of this class is Having Balance in Christ While Living in Such Emotional Times, Part 1. And we just went over the definition of emotion. A conscious mental reaction such as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as strong feeling, usually directed toward a specific object or even a person, and typically accompanied by physiological and behavior changes in the body, right? AKA, you get blinded. So Matthew 24:2.
We're going to Matthew 24:2. When everybody have it, say con.
Also, just a real quick announcement. I'm about to contradict everything I just said, right? If there was anybody in here who was trying to get some water, but didn't, we got water now. I mean, who discovered we didn't have any, we got water now. But still, limit the movement, con. Matthew 24:2.
Matthew 24:2. Everybody have it, say con. And Yeshua said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down.
Right, so he's going into the signs of the end of the world, things like that. What will be the sign of his coming? Him and the disciples are having a conversation. Go ahead.
And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?
Right, because if you got an idea, why do you think they related the end of the temple with his second coming? And we're going to go into it in a few weeks. Because the destruction of the temple usually was related to the destruction of Israel, right? So they're thinking that, okay, when this temple gets destroyed, then it must be the end of everything else too. Then, so let us know what's going to be the signs. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And Yeshua answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you.
First thing, take heed that no man deceive you. Go ahead.
For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
Right, so these are the first signs that the end is approaching, but it's not the end yet. Go ahead.
Verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places.
Right, go ahead.
All these are the beginning of sorrows.
Right, all these are the beginning of sorrows. Go ahead.
Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another.
Right, key words. And then shall many be offended. And offense usually comes because that's the emotional reaction. So many shall be offended, and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. Because the thing about emotions, about fear, jealousy, envy, anger, things like that, it's not like they're just there and just exist inside you. They got to manifest into actions. Go ahead, last scripture.
Verse 12. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold.
So that's the root of it all. Because iniquity and sin, it abounds, the love of many shall wax cold. Because guess what? When you're in a sinful state, you lose the Holy Spirit of compassion, the spirit of grace, forgiveness, of mercy, of long suffering, of peace. Why? Because those are the fruits of the Holy Spirit. But she can't dwell in the body that's subject to sin. So next set of scriptures, Matthew 10 and 28. Because when you're sinning in a sinful state, it's all about you and whatever emotion you're dealing with. Because it gets heightened. Go ahead. Matthew 10 and 28.
Matthew 10 and 28. Everybody there say, "Con." And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell.
Right, and we had a perfect example from that with Officer Yatazakwa's class when he went over the 7 brothers, how they faced death in a manly way. Because they didn't fear those who could kill the body, but they did fear he who could fear the body and the soul. Go ahead.
Verse 29. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father? But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear ye not, therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows. Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in heaven.
Right, and when it says, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered, he's trying to give an example of how important you are, because he who created you, he even knows how many, he took so much care and compassion and created you and wants you to live, that he knows how many hairs are on your body or on your head. Go ahead.
But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household.
Right. And what's crazy about in Babylon is TV and the movies and things like that, because the media, I'll just say the media, right? The media helps support everything. Because we might think we're safe because we don't watch TV. Well, I watch YouTube or I might watch Netflix. I control what I intake. That's fine and all, but guess what? Those folks outside these doors, they don't. They have no discretion. They watch any and everything. And you can see that they're reenacting what they see on television in the movies, right? Let's get the commentary.
The commentary reads, Christ gave us key signs and insight to how troubling and uncertain the times will be during the end of the world.
Right, and that's the key why we went to those scriptures, because Christ gave us signs on what to look for and to help us know that, like, all right, in these times, it's going to be some emotional struggles going on. Know that. Key number 1, go ahead.
It's only natural that troubling and uncertain times would then lead to highly emotional times with feelings such as sorrow, fear, hate, envy, jealousy, anxiety, depression, etc., manifesting in people as an end result.
Right, and the funny thing about it is sorrow, fear, hate, envy, jealousy, anxiety, depression, etc. Guess what? Babylon has a whole system on how to treat those things. Whether it's through pills or whether it's through some counseling program or whatever the case may be, a social worker at school, for the young folks, your doctors, what they call them, the shrinks for the adults. You got, what's his name? Tony Robbins, he's in there too, right? But it doesn't make any sense because they're just trying to fix behavior within the problem that they create anyway. So that's even more reason why to come out of her, my people. Because the only solution, the only way you will find peace in here, in Babylon, or the world, period, is stepping out. Unplug. Step out and unplug. I had some very sound sleep last night. And it was a simple thing that led to it. You know why? Because when we came here for Bible study, I left my phone at home. And when we went to sleep last night, I left my phone in the living room. Just that burden that's on you from the world, from your emails. I got it. Right? It comes with weight and we don't even realize it. Everybody wants you on their agenda and we don't even realize it. We're so accessible to the world. We're plugged in, we're jacked in. We might as well be like the folks in the Matrix with the thing in the back. Right? Because it's a lot of weight that just put on us from the world that we just don't realize. So, be mindful of that smartphone and how accessible you are to the world. Come? Go ahead.
With the fact that we are living in the day of the Great Awakening, the truth also has the potential to cause a high level of emotional instability in people who don't want to hear the truth, but would rather live in sin. Christ warned that the truth would lead to many offenses and in turn lead to great betrayal and love lost even between kindreds and friends. Right, because that's the thing, the offenses lead to betrayal. Go ahead. What are the underlying factors at work that would lead a person to such an emotional instability? Right, so what are the underlying factors? What's underneath the surface? Because we could look at the surface level of everything, right? We could definitely look at the surface level of everything. But what's underneath? What's causing this, what you call unstable behavior? Right. Well, we about to get it. Guess what? Well, pride, yeah. About to go to Enoch, right? So let's get Enoch chapter 8. Or no, what is this? 10 and 5, 15. That's 15. Yeah. Roman 15. Numerals, people, Roman numerals. Enoch 15 and 8. Book of Enoch 15 and 8. If you don't have it, you can look it up on your cell phone. So remember, the elders posed the question: what's underlying this? What's working, beneath the surface that's causing these emotional times right now that we're in? So we had the book of Enoch, chapter 15, verse 8. That's you all have it, that's the X and the V. Right. Should have said that first. Everybody have it, say con? Okay. Enoch chapter 15, verse 8. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits. Right. So produced from the spirits and flesh. Keep that in mind because we want to explain what that means. Go ahead. Shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Verse 9. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. Right, that's how they came from spirit and flesh, because the holy watchers, the angels came down and slept with women. And I think it's in the book of Jasher, it explains that they took the form of their husbands. Go ahead. They shall be evil spirits on the earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. Verse 10, as for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling, but as for the spirits of the earth which were born upon the earth, on the earth shall be their dwelling. So what it's saying here is, since these evil spirits or these evil beings, since they were born here on earth, earth will be their dwelling place, not the heavenly realm. So the spirit that leaves their bodies once when they die, their spirits will be trapped down here. Go ahead. Verse 11, and the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. So
these evil spirits that's trapped down here with us, that's all they do. That's all that they thrive on. They afflict, they oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on earth and cause trouble. That's their role. And it's no wonder, because they have no home. So they're just restless spirits anyway, restless evil spirits. Go ahead.
They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst and cause offenses.
And they take no food, they take no food, meaning they eat. They don't eat, but yet they hunger and thirst and cause offenses. And we always gave this example in the past. If you remember the Ghostbusters, the green guy, Slimer, how he'll be constantly eating but not digesting anything, constantly eating, and everything is going through him, hitting the floor, right? It's the same thing. So that's why fasting is a key tool, because these evil spirits will take hold on you, and you'll realize that you just, went on a whole eating binge and didn't even realize it. You realize, like, man, something just came over me. Like, I really wasn't even all that hungry. Or you just get caught up in the wild fit and start ordering everything off the menu, stuff you don't usually order, right?
I just want to throw in there, for anyone that has seen that movie Venom, it was kind of the same thing. Every time that a spirit would come on him, he would just eat anything and everything.
Okay, that's a great point, because Venom, if you don't know, Venom is a comic book character from the Spider-Man world. And he's pretty much what you call a parasite, but really he possesses you. So that's what he's talking about. It's like demon possession. Go ahead, Art.
And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them.
All right, so let's get Revelation chapter 18, verse 1. And another thing, what you call binge eating when you're sad and depressed. The world got a whole bunch of different definitions and solutions for that. No, it's the evil spirits.
We're going into Revelations 18 and 1. Everybody have it, say con. Revelations 18 and 1. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, is fallen.
Right, so Babylon the great is fallen, aka America is fallen. Go ahead.
And is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird.
So at the end times, when Babylon is falling, right, another key sign of its fall is when it's just evident that has become the cage of what? Or the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. And the elders always give the example, like when you look at a bird cage, the birds are trapped in. They can't leave. So it's the same thing with these evil spirits here in this country. They're trapped, they can't leave. They're here to stay. So it's the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit. Every foul spirit. Go ahead with the commentary.
The commentary reads, so the book of Enoch lets us know that fallen angels impregnated women, who then gave birth to giants, and after these giants died, the spirits that would remain from them would be called evil spirits or demons. It's these demons that influence mankind to destroy one another, cause offenses, and through our sins have a doorway into bringing forth oppressive emotions.
Right. And its key word is through our sins that open the doorway to bring forth oppressive emotions. Go ahead.
In other words, if we become overrun with emotions and we don't identify that we are in this state of mind and the sins we are dealing with, then demons can come in, manipulate and take advantage, causing us to make very poor and unwise decisions, being that we are being led by our flesh and not by the Holy Spirit.
Right, because we're in what? An emotional state, being overran by demons, by evil spirits. And we're reacting. We don't take the time to kind of just say to ourselves, like, okay, what I'm about to do right now is going to harm me in the long run, and it might even harm what I'm trying to do to progress myself, progress my family, be a better member of the church, all this stuff. All that stuff flies out the window. Those rational conversations, you gotta have a talk with yourself first, just flies out the window. And it might even help to have some frank conversations with yourself. I do it. And it might be even by the smallest things, like, man, me, prime example, the other night, my wife was at home. Is it really this important for me to stop at the bookstore right now when I need to go home to be with my family, my wife and my daughter? Just real simple stuff like that. I'm not that hungry. I know that particular sign triggers me. This is real stuff. I'm serious. And then you order up the whole menu. It's real stuff. Go ahead, Doc.
John the Revelator told us that in the end, Babylon, which we know to be America, will become the habitation of foul spirits and a place where every demon will be bound like birds in a cage. With this being understood, how susceptible would this society be when it comes to emotional instability and distress?
Right. So why is it that it seems that blacks and minorities in America have it the worst when it comes to this condition? If you read a book called The Bell Curve, professors and analysts and what the other people call social scientists got a whole 1,000-page book describing why blacks and minorities are in the situation they're in. It's called The Bell Curve. Very interesting study on us, right? Is that the reason? Let's find out. Is it just because we live in certain neighborhoods? That other book called Freakonomics, right? It's a crazy sounding name, but that's just what the so-called study is called, right? Is that the reason why we have envy, strife, fear, doubt, right? Let's get it. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15. And this is something that we usually make a mention of when we're street preaching. How, and it's this is when you have your conversations with your family and friends, you can use this line. It works every time. It hooks them in. When you say, give an overview about Deuteronomy, like, hey, Deuteronomy, it goes into the gifts and the curses we'll receive. And if you notice, the blessings only last from verse 2 to verse 14. Mm-hmm. But the curses last from verse 15 to 68. Then oh wow, okay, that is interesting. All right, you got them. Go ahead, Doc.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Right. So go ahead.
Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field.
And this is another reason. We're going to let it just read through. I'm not going to give too much commentary. But this is another reason why we can't rely 100% on man's wisdom. Because man, all he's doing is trying to break down scientifically in his mind a curse. When all we got to do is just read the curses and just do the opposite. We read the curses like, okay, yeah, this does show up in our life. All right, so how do we get rid of this curse then? Go ahead.
Cursed shall thou be thy basket and thy store.
Right, so cursed shall thou be in the city and cursed shall thou be in the field. We definitely see that. And basket and thy store. Remember, we were farmers back then. We lived off the land. So your store will be your storehouse, your crops and everything. So today, that's your modern day bank account. Go ahead.
Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind and the flocks of thy sheep.
Meaning your own children, and then what comes from your animals, your livestock. So those will be cursed.
Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out.
When you're born into this place and when you leave. Go ahead.
The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, and all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it.
Right, well, Babylon will tell you, well, you know, people live on top of each other and, you know, and poverty and crime, then of course, pestilence, you're gonna have mice and rats and roaches. No, that's a curse. Because you got other countries where people live on top of each other, but they perfectly fine. They don't have the rat signs in their alleys. Go ahead.
The Lord shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew.
Right. So not only will the pestilence pursue us, but you got the consumption. I mean, with the fever, inflammation, so different diseases just will always be in a sickly state. Go ahead.
And with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish.
So the what you call the pestilence, the illnesses, the sword, that's what will pursue us until we're destroyed. Go ahead.
Skipping down to 30.
So skip down to verse 30.
Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. And thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
Right. And, excuse me, we usually give the example of through slavery and through the destruction of the Native Americans and the destruction of those in the Caribbean and South America and Central America, but also even today, like how a brother would have a wife, right? But it goes haywire. You would try to build and have plans, but it goes haywire. Go ahead.
Skipping down to 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
And that didn't stop with slavery, because we still do it now. Me and my wife kind of unconsciously, we didn't have a talk about it, but unconsciously, we started kind of monitoring the time with Zany watching Netflix and stuff. But think about it. If you let the television babysit your child, you giving them up to another people. If your child is glued to the whatever screen, whether it's the video game screen or whatever screen, you're giving them up to another people. Because another people's ideas, values, culture is being implanted into their brain. And even if you got to do little steps, right? Because think about it. If you want to lose weight, or not lose weight, if you just want to start eating healthier, you might just purposely stop buying so much junk food, so it's not even in the house, so it's not even seen. So you might have to just unplug the video games and put them up and make it hard for them to reach. Like you got to actually do some effort to get to the video game. You might have to actually just unplug the television, take the remotes out the remote. Take the batteries out the remote. You might actually just have to put some passwords in the computer, but have somebody else do the password, or make the password so you don't even know what it is, so you can never break into it. Right? Because we know how to be strategic on how to change our eating habits and things like that. Right? I remember when I was on the computer too much, I would just close it up, unplug it, put it in the bag, put the bag somewhere on the other side of the house. So if I need to get on the computer, I got to go through all these links just to get it back on. Well, I'm like, I don't even feel like going through all that. So we got to be mindful if we still are giving our children up, because back then, during these curses, during slavery, it was by force. But now hey, go ahead, take them. Thank you. I need a breather. You doing me a favor. Thank you. Thank you, CPS, whose teacher's been on strike 3 times in the past 5 years. Go ahead, Art.
And thy eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand.
Right, go ahead, verse 41.
Skipping down to 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
Mm-hmm. And then modern day captivity is just this whole system of the world, Babylon. Our children went in captivity with the U.S. Cavalry when they came with Gad. You know, Columbus and his minions in Central America, South America, right? And then when the slavers came. But we do it now still. You know, with the, not saying us in here, but just our people in general. Going along with the so-called American way of life. Go ahead.
Skipping down to 46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
Right, and that's another key scripture we bring out of street preaching, to let our people know, like, hey, these curses are going to be a sign forever. Go ahead.
47. Because thou servest not the Lord thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. We'll skip down to verse 59. Deuteronomy 28:59. Then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of a long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance. Verse 60. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou was afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee.
Right, because remember, we read in different other books, like in the Apocrypha, how they were struck with madness and diseases. Remember, you got what you call the 10 plagues, but there was other stuff going on too. Go ahead.
And also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord thy power bring upon thee until thou be destroyed.
Right. So what's the one that always gives us? The sickle cell anemia, the other one, high blood pressure, diabetes, the cancer. That wasn't written up in this book, so that's what that's talking about. Go ahead.
Skipping down to 64. And the Most High shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have no rest. But the Most High shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind.
Right, so how can you focus if you're dealing with these curses? And how can you not have just a nation of people that's got just what you call emotional wreck? Go ahead.
Verse 66. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee.
Right, your very life, your very existence is going to hang in doubt before you. But we got blinders on too, because we still got the nerve to be cruising down Lakeshore Drive in Stony Island.
Right.
Like ain't nothing going on. Go ahead.
And thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have no assurance of thy life. Going back up to 48. Therefore thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Most High shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
Right, and 48 is another powerful verse we bring out on the streets. And you can use this, with your family and friends. It says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in the want of all things. And the way we usually break that down is in hunger. What does that mean?
You got to go to other nations for all the food that you
got to go to all the other nations for the food. And guess what? They feed us. We might have some options when we go to these grocery stores, like, oh, okay, it's 18 different hours. I can choose what I want to eat. Well, really, they chose on what to put on the shelves, and they chose when to put it on the shelves. And they have the choice to not put it on the shelf, right? And in thirst, hunger and thirst, nakedness. What you think that might mean? Clothing. We don't own anything of the distribution. You know what I'm saying? The raw materials, we don't own that. And matter of fact, they stripped us from, what's the brother, he gonna bring it out soon, Officer Yatas. The mindset of being self-sufficient enough to try to do some research, like, well, how can we figure some things out, right? And pretty much it ends in want of all things. Go ahead.
We're going to Romans 11 and 11. Romans 11, 11.
And also, I was reading the trade journal for food processing. I know that sounds weird, but I just like to read a lot of weird stuff, because when you read just all over the place, you just kind of get ideas from everywhere. So the trade journal for the food processing, pretty much food processing is, you know, when you go to the factories, like the Keeper factory, that's a food processing plant, right? Or the, what's the people here in Chicago to make the bread, the Wonder Bread, right? So the trade journal, and I'm bringing this article out sooner or later, but it was talking about how they're pushing towards making food without having to rely on animals. So I'm like, what? You know? So they definitely have control over our consumption. Best believe, right? So in hunger and in thirst. Go ahead,
Romans 11, 11. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation has come unto the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy.
Right, so that's the whole point of it. And remember, that was Paul's mission, and he said that in Acts. Go ahead.
Now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them be the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness?
Right, so how much more their fullness when we come back then? When we receive the blessings and come back to our rightful place. Remember, it's the story of the prodigal son in Luke. How much more the fullness when that son finally was stripped down to everything, right? He was feeding the pigs of some guy somewhere else. And he said, wait a minute, you know what? My father, he has a lot going on. I can simply just work for my father. Surely my father will hire me. I'll just let him know, hey, Dad, I'm sorry for everything. Let me just work. I don't, you know. But guess what? The father made a grand feast. So how much more the fullness? That's what that's talking about. That's what that parable is talking about. The children of Israel. Go ahead.
Going to the next commentary. And it reads, knowing that the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the children of Israel, and that our forefathers broke the covenant which was given to them by the Most High, we fell into the accursed condition we read about in Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68.
Right, so we're in a cursed condition. And remember, with that, it's about to go into it, with that cursed condition, the reason why we went through all those scriptures describing the cursed condition, it's going to breed some emotionally unstable people. That's just what it is. And couple that with the curses going on in Babylon, is, of course. So you got to realize what you're up against, and not just be somewhere sitting thinking you're just this horrible person who just can't understand it. No. You in the most wicked kingdom ever, with the most wicked spirits caged here with you, right? Under curses. And it's a simple solution. We're going to bring it out at the end. Go ahead.
With every curse under the sun, it would seem to be put on us because of this disobedience. It would lead to emotional states such as vexation, madness, astonishment of heart, failing of eyes, sorrow of mind, and jealousy, instead of the good emotional states like joyfulness and gladness of heart.
Right. As a whole, we don't know joy or gladness of heart as a whole. We might have, even in our personal lives, we might have little brief moments of joy. The time when I used to visit grandma and, you know, but those days are long gone. Now when we look at our adult life, like, what happened? And we've been told to lie, well, that's the real world, got to deal with it. No, it's the curses. It's the emotional stability, part of those curses. And it's the disobedience that our forefathers did and taught us how to continue to be disobedient. Go ahead.
By this, we can easily conclude that these cursed people would suffer from a severe case of emotional insecurity and instability. Seeing how the other nations can seem to get away with murder and still have businesses, homes, cars, great success, and rule over us, what level of jealousy, anger, and hate would that leave us in towards them and toward each other as we fight amongst ourselves over scraps?
Right. So, of course, when we see other nations or whatever the case may be, we might get a little fired up and just ask, like, well, what's going on here? Ride through the Gold Coast, you're going to have some questions. Ride through Old Town, you're going to have some questions. Ride through Lincoln Park and Lakeview, you're going to have some questions. Like, wait a minute, what happened? Then come back home. I'm very confused now. What's going on? It's the disobedience and the curses. Go ahead. And part of those curses is, like I said, fighting over scraps now. Go ahead.
It was through this jealousy and envy towards the Gentiles because of the gods they served that led us into the condition we are in today.
Right, and Officer Yatazakar brought it out too. At the end of that story, and 2 Maccabees chapter 7, the final son explained it to Antiochus, like, wait a minute, hold on, sir. Don't get it confused. You have this power over us because of our disobedience. Right? Go ahead.
With these things considered, how do we have balance through Christ Yeshua and not allow our emotions to take control and overrun us in these end times?
Right. So always remember, it's our disobedience that led us into this situation. So it's really no point. That's wasted energy getting jealous over the nations. It's a lot of wasted energy. Right? Because when you understand your situation, it's like, okay, they're given this power. We're just in this situation briefly until we get it back right as a people. Go ahead.
Balance.
So we got the word balance, the definition of the word balance.
The definition for the word balance, an uneven distribution of weight an even distribution of weight, enabling someone or something to remain upright and steady.
Right. So just like the balance boards in the Olympics. And one of the things about when I read this, what immediately made me think about is the missiles. And it kind of relates to how we just gotta just keep on fighting, right? Because when the missile is shot up in the air, you know, it actually keeps going off course. But it could tell it got sensors to keep putting it back on its course.
Yeah, like a homing device.
Right, like a homing device. So the same thing with us. It's the homing device that keeps it in balance. So we're gonna have, you know, stuff going on in our life, but we gotta keep it balanced. Keep it balanced. Go ahead.
Definition of balance also is keep or put something in a steady position so that it does not fall.
All right, so let's get Leviticus chapter 19, verse 36.
We're going into Leviticus 19:36. Everyone have it, say Khan. Leviticus 19:36 reads, just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hand shall ye have. I am the Lord your power, which brought you out of the land of Egypt.
All right. So it says, just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin shall ye have. So that's talking about, you ever seen, what's it called? The biggest hypocrisy in life, Lady Justice or whatever they call her, you know, with holding the balance and things. That's what it's called. That's what it's talking about. So you got to have the just, you got to be fair in your dealings. That's what it's talking about. So I think it's the movie, if anybody ever watched with the children, the Joseph animated movie, right? And it's a part where the guy was about to rob Potiphar, but Joseph knew it because he was unjust. The guy that was trying to sell him the horse or whatever was unjust in his dealings. So that's what it's talking about. Because remember, that's how people handled deals back then, right? Because it wasn't just the paper money. So you had to make sure everything was just and fair. But it's a spiritual thing behind that too. Because you can't go into it with a mindset trying to get, try to get the upper hand on somebody. So while we dealing with each other, we can't be trying to get, over on anybody or anything like that. Go ahead.
Next scripture dealing with that is Isaiah 40:12. Isaiah 40 and verse 12. Everybody have it, say Khan. Who have measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, and meted out heaven with the span, and comprehended the dust of the earth in a measure, and weighed the mountains in scales, and the hills in a balance.
Right, so go ahead with the commentary. Is going to explain what it's talking about.
The commentary reads, even from the very beginning, the heavens and the earth were created with a perfect balance and order.
Right. So we might see the mountain ranges and the rivers and things like that and think that it's just some random occurrence. No, everything was created with a balance. Go ahead.
With the sins of Adam and Eve and the fall of mankind, the universe has become completely out of order and unbalanced.
Right. And Elder Ricardo, I keep mentioning this class, the living in uncertain times, but he starts off showing how, he went into Enoch first, showing how in these last times, how nature will be out of course. And by default, it trickles down on us. So when it says, man, the fall of mankind, the universe, that's what it's speaking of. All the creation, the stars, the weather patterns, all of it is out of course. So by default, the people living on this planet are going to be out of course. Go ahead.
To show how important having balance and order is, the Most High gave us laws in regards to this so that we could remain equitable in our dealings toward our fellow brothers and sisters.
Right.
If we are not careful and mindful when faced with emotional distress, we can then be influenced by evil spirits to deal unjustly towards one another.
Right. And that's real key. And we're about to bring out some good scriptures. It says, if we are not careful and mindful when faced with emotional distress, we can then be influenced by evil spirits to deal unjustly towards one another. You know another word for that? I'm not a morning person. Right? And we'll use that as something, well, they can't, he's talking, or look, when I get in the house, I just want to sit down and you already know this about me. No, we got to be aware of these things because this is the stuff when the evil spirits know us very well, right? And then we'll react emotionally and hurt somebody with some ill words that we didn't even mean. Let's get Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1. And we got some scriptures that's furthering the lesson. You know what? How about this? I'm going to just name off the scriptures so we don't have to waste time going back and forth through them. And the brother here is going to read them. So he's going boom, boom, boom. So we got Proverbs 11 and 1.
Proverbs 11 and 1 reads.
I'm going to just keep listening. So then Proverbs 20 and 23. And you just write these down because we're about to just run through them. Micah 6 and 10. Then Micah 6 and 11. And then Job 31 and 6. So we're just about to read through these and then hit the commentary because they all kind of the same thing, making sure we have just dealings among each other. Go ahead,
Proverbs 11 and 1. A false balance is abomination to the Most High, but a just weight is his delight. Proverbs 20 and 23. Diverse weights are an abomination unto the Most High, and a false balance is not good. Micah 6:10. Are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is abominable? Micah 6:11. Shall I count them pure with the wicked balances, and with the bag of deceitful weights? Job 31:6. Job 31:6. Let me be weighed in an even balance, that the Most High may know mine integrity.
All right, now we got the commentary.
And the commentary reads, and if we deal fraudulently and treacherously with one another out of pure emotion, then we become an abomination to the Most High, because we are to love our neighbor as ourselves. It's this love that keeps us balanced in our emotions so that we can remain innocent in one another while proving our integrity with the Most High.
Yeah, real quick, because I'm about to show how this looks in real life. Correction. I will show how it looks in real life. Go ahead, because there's some other scriptures that hit it more. So we leave it right here with that comment? No, up here. Yeah, Philippians. All right. So now we have Philippians chapter 2, verse 5. All right, so we have Philippians chapter 2, verse 5.
Everybody there say con. Philippians 2:5. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Yeshua, who, being in the form of the Most High, thought it not robbery to be equal with the Most High, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross.
Right, and this sort of precedes with the lesson that Elder Gabar gave last week. You know how he went over the scriptures, I believe, what we were in Colossians, about how Christ, you know, he had to come down to give us the example. He had to come through the flesh to give us the ultimate example of how to operate. So let's get the next set of scriptures. And it's going somewhere with this because, you know, Christ gave us an example on how to have emotional stability. So that's where this is going, these scriptures. Let's get Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. And this set of scriptures is what always stays on my mind when I'm wrestling with if I should take what somebody did or said to me seriously or not. Go ahead, Up.
Going into Hebrews 12:1. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed with so a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us.
Right, so we all have that one sin, right? What do you call the monkey on your back that's constantly trying to afflict you. But you got to be able to let that go. Go ahead.
Looking unto Yeshua, the author and finisher of our faith.
Right, the author and the finisher of our faith. Because like Yatazakwa said the other day, the schoolmaster, the law, was to get us to one point, but Christ was the author and finisher of our faith. Go ahead.
Who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of the Most High.
Right, now this is what you call objectivity at its fullest. Who for the joy that was set before him. So he thought about it. You know what? This little pain I'm about to endure, the joy that's set before me far outweighs this little experience right now. He endured the cross, he despised the shame, and he was set down at the right hand of the throne of the Most High. Go ahead.
Verse 3, for consider him that endures such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds.
Right, and then as the scriptures go on, let's get it. Hebrews 12, and I think it's verse 4. We just go ahead and read verse 4.
Hebrews 12 and 4. Ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin.
Right. So when it comes down to if anybody's, so-called afflicting you or whatever the case may be, offending you, so-called, it's really nothing. Because we was never in a situation Christ was in where we had to resist unto blood and still endure through the contradiction that was all around us, and still die for the people that was contradicting themselves. None of us have gone through that, right? So it says, for consider him, verse 3 again, for consider him that endures such contradiction of sinners against himself. So this is what you consider, this is what you take your mind to, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds and get swayed by your emotions. So that's what you take your mind to. So next scripture, we got 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 21.
We're going into 1 Peter 2 and 21. And it reads, for even hereunto were ye called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that ye should follow these steps.
Yep. So it says, hereunto ye were called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example on how to suffer, how to endure, right? So let's get John chapter 13, verse 15.
Everybody have a say, Con? St. John 13 and 15. For I have given you an example that ye should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them.
Right. So bringing down Christ's, if you want to say humanity, if you will, about how he's saying, hey, we're all, me and you, going to have to go through these same things. The contradiction, the enduring, right? Having to be stable emotionally through it all. Because I'm doing it, and you're going to have to do it too. Because the servant isn't greater, the master isn't greater than servant. We're all in this together. Go ahead.
We're going to the next scripture, which is 1 Corinthians 2 and 15. 1 Corinthians 2 and 15. If you there, say, Con. But he that is spiritual judges all things, yet he himself is judge of no man. For who have known the mind of the Most High, that he may instruct him? But ye have the mind of Christ Yeshua.
Right. And when it says, yeah, he himself is judge of no man, because if you're spiritual, you're not leaving yourself up for the tribunal, as Elder Gabar says. Your slate will be clean. You will have no blemish, right? So let's get the commentary.
The commentary reads, what better example than Christ Yeshua himself to look when it comes to the mind we must have to operate with emotional stability. He laid out the path, and we must follow his steps if we are to be successful in remaining balanced with everything we do. Emotions can be like weights that can hold us down and oppress us. Enoch told us that one of the many jobs of a demon is oppression.
Right. And I know we've all felt this before, to know how that weight, right? Think about it. When you finally talk it out, you feel like a weight been lifted off you. You can rest now. Like, man, it felt like, you just took off a weight jacket or something. You sleeping good now. People look like, man, you look good. You glowing, that's what they say. Because that dark cloud, is gone now, right? Go ahead.
So demons look to capitalize on our emotions. We must set these weights aside and put them all on Christ so we can run this race with patience to finish it. Let's take a look at some of the situations Christ faced was faced with, and the wisdom he gave us on what we must do to keep in mind to gain the victory in these situations.
Right. So always good to see some real-time action, and we can see how Christ, who was constantly, tempted by hypocrites. He could have easily just had enough and been fed up. But he showed us the ultimate example on how to have righteous dealings with people. Go ahead.
We're going to John 8:3, St. John 8:3. That's St. John 8:3. Everyone have it, say con. And the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery, and when they had set her in the midst, they said unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery, in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned, but what sayest thou? This they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Yeshua stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he heard them not.
Right, because the whole thing about it is, if he had went against Moses' law, they would have had a case to bring him on trial, to be able to support their claim that he's a false prophet. That whole thing. Because remember, it's the law of Moses that governed us back then. Just like today, if you wanted to, you was trying to hurt, you hated your neighbor. It's a bad example, but you know what I'm trying to say. If two neighbors was at war with each other, and the one neighbor is waiting to catch the neighbor, like, see, I got pictures and photos of him cutting his tree, and his tree fell over on my property line, something like that. Because these civil laws will govern us, but the law of Moses governed us back then. So they're trying to catch him up with something very serious. Now, if he goes against the law of Moses, then hey, we got a case on him now. Go ahead.
Verse 7. So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her.
Right. So see the wisdom in that? He didn't go against the law of Moses at all. But what he did was still convict them with wisdom, so they could exercise the law spiritually. So he said, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Knowing that we were a sinful nation, because he knew why he came in the first place, to redeem us. Go ahead.
And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest.
Right, beginning at the eldest, because the older man, he had more sin stocked up than the rest of them. Go ahead.
Even unto the last. And Yeshua was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. And when Yeshua had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? Have no man condemned thee?
Right. So he said, Woman, where are those men who are accusing you? Go ahead.
She said, No man, Lord. And Yeshua said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more.
Right, because how can sinful men condemn the actions? And where's the forgiveness? Where's the mercy? That's what he's getting to. So next scripture, we got James chapter 1, verse 19. Because here in America, we are not governed by moral laws, right? But back in the day, that's what Israel was all about, being governed by moral laws. And Christ had to come back, well, not come back, he had to come to remind us of that our laws are moral. That as a spirit, it's a spirit behind the laws. They're not just some things just to read on the Shabbat and, look to see who's not doing what. Go ahead.
James 1 and 19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of the Most High.
Right. So let's get the commentary.
The commentary reads, so there was a lynch mob of people led by the Pharisees and scribes who had an accusation against a woman for committing adultery and wanted her dead.
Right, because you got to think about it. It wasn't just the men that came to approach. It was a whole scene. It was those who followed those men, those who followed Christ, and the bystanders, the in-betweeners, who just want to see the commotion. So it was a big scene. Like I said, a lynch mob was there. Go ahead.
Notice how Christ handled himself in the situation. He was quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath.
He thought. He used his mind. He didn't react. Go ahead.
How many times, brothers and sisters, have we been in a similar situation when someone comes to us about an accusation against someone else and we get caught up in the emotional hysteria of the moment?
Right. We just see red. Everything else that comes out that person's mouth, we can't hear it all. Like, we just so, dumbfounded by us being accused. And we just react. Go ahead.
Only to find out later that because we didn't hear out the whole matter by getting other witnesses involved so that the story could be in context, we realize that we have unjustly judged the person and situation.
Right. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
We too must learn to have balance in these situations just as Christ Yeshua did.
Right. Now, there's a scripture in Sirach I want to find real quick, but while we find that, let's get Sirach chapter 5. No. It's actually 3. Yeah, you could go to, all of it is good from verse 18 on down, but we can start at verse 23 to 25.
This is the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 3, verse 23. Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are shown unto thee than men understand. For many are deceived by their own vain opinion, and an evil suspicion hath overthrown their judgment. Verse 25. Without eyes thou shalt want light. Profess not the knowledge, therefore, that thou hast not.
Right, so I'll look for those. I'll find the scripture later. Because now I think it's in Proverbs. But let's read 23 again.
Verse 23. Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are shown unto thee than men understand. For many are deceived by their own vain opinion, and an evil suspicion hath overthrown their judgment.
Right, so it says, many are deceived by their own vain opinion, and an evil suspicion has overthrown their judgment. That's what that's talking about. Not hearing out the whole matter. Not, doing it righteously, finding the correct amount of witnesses that you need to base your decision off facts. Not off maybe a bias toward one person or a bias toward another person or whatever the case may be. So let's get Sirach chapter 21, verse 25.
Going into Sirach 21:25. The lips of talkers will be telling such things as pertain not unto them, but the words of such as having understanding are weighed in balance. The heart of fools is in their mouth, but the mouth of the wise is in their heart.
Right, so it says the lips of talkers will be telling such things as pertain not unto them, but the words of such as have understanding are weighed in the balance. Going back to that balance again, that just weight, that just balance. Being slow to wrath, right? Read 26 again.
Verse 26. The heart of fools is in their mouth, but the mouth of the wise is in their heart.
Meaning fools just react quickly and just spat out something, right? And the spirit of a fool can jump on us anytime when we just react with emotion and not think about it first. Let's go to Sirach 28 and 25.
We're jumping over to Sirach 28:25. And weigh thy words in the balance, and make a door and bar for thy mouth.
It says, now this is deep. It says, weigh thy words in a balance, right? So thinking about what you're going to say first. And make a door and a bar for thy mouth. Think about that. Meditate on that one. Make a door and a bar for thy mouth. Because I just saw how much the mouth and the heart and emotions can get you in trouble. Next set of scriptures, we got Matthew 12 and 34. And the sister had a question about this at the end of Bible study, I believe.
We're going to Matthew 12 and 34. Everyone have it, say con? Yeah. Matthew 12 and 34. O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. A good man out of the good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. But I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned.
Right, so even more importance on why we need to watch our mouth and watch our tongue. Because when you break down the scripture, verse 36, it says, but I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. So idle, when you look it up, it means lazy, not laboring, not, right? And then when it says give account, now give account is very interesting because the Greek word is logos. And it means that when with the Greek definition, meaning you going into how explaining your case or going into a speech or something like that. And if anybody knows about what you call the law, lawyers, how they study and things like that, and like public speaking, it's an art form called rhetoric. Not how we think of rhetoric, like when we might say they're speaking empty rhetoric, but just the rhetoric, what it actually means. You got three parts of it, and one of it is logos, meaning using reason and logic. So guess what? When you give your account on that day of judgment, you're going to be expected to give not because when you think about it, when you just read it for verbatim, you might think that you're going to have to give account thereof in the day of judgment, meaning, all right, you're going to have to be receive the judgment for it. But actually, you're going to be expected to actually speak your piece on all the outer words and try your best to use some logic and reason on why you said those words. But it's not going to be. Read that again, verse 36.
Verse 36. But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment.
Right. And for by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. And guess what words is? The same Greek word, logos. Right? Y'all getting it? So I found that scripture in Proverbs, going back to how we got to search out the matter and not just be moved by a vain opinion or anything like that. So it's Proverbs chapter 25, verse 2. 25, verse 2.
Proverbs chapter 25, verse 2. And it reads, "It is the glory of the Most High to conceal a thing, but the honor of a king is to search out a matter."
Right. So those, not just kings, but in leadership positions or who in a position who has to judge a matter, it's honorable for you to search out the matter. To get all the facts. Right? Because you're dealing with somebody's life, somebody's soul. Their future almost depending on their future of the church is depending on you. Right? So let's get Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26.
We're going into Ephesians 4 and 26.
Oh, right. This is the set of scriptures I was talking about. Well, I'm gonna show you what it looks like in real life. Where's the brother Mike? Where's Micah Olive? Where'd he go? Right.
Mike Buck.
So who all here was in the men's meeting last week? All right. Now I'm gonna show you the real life case study, how I fell victim of this. Do you remember what I said right before Mike asked his question?
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, I'm an open book. If you got any problems with the way I lead, the lack thereof, whatever, bring it to me. Immediately after I had said that, the brother raised his hand. I said, yes. He said, well, yeah, just if you get a little bit better with reaching back out, because, I still didn't receive the information I was asking about from my father because his father's moved to Atlanta. And immediately I go, well, that was unique because that was the week my mother died. Now, to a blind eye, you might be like, man, why weren't you more aware of, that was the week his mother died? Or, man, no, that was me being emotional and weak at the moment. Me just shooting off something real quick. No. So I apologized to him later. I said, I shouldn't have responded to you like that. Because that was just me using something just out of nowhere because I, couldn't have handled the accusation right there. You see how this stuff works in real life? How we gotta constantly guard ourselves because we've been so conditioned to just shoot. Right? Con? All right. So let's get the commentary.
Commentary read.
Oh, did we read Ephesians?
Ephesians 4 and 26.
Right.
Ephesians 4 and 26 reads, "Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath."
Right, so it's okay to be angry, but sin not. Don't let it lead you to sin. Go ahead.
The commentary reads,
because why? What's another another common street preaching scripture? And Yeshua used to read this a lot when he'd be reading for Lamont. I don't know why. But surely oppression maketh the wise man mad. Right, gun? So let's get the commentary.
Paul tells us there are times when things may make us upset and angry. This is normal. However, in these moments, how do we handle ourselves? Do we allow the emotion of anger to overtake us and cause us to sin?
Right. That's option number one. Go ahead.
How many times have we been in a situation where we got mad and said evil things only to realize after our emotions have subsided that the things we said were bad and we shouldn't have said them?
Right. Because I shouldn't even say that to that brother. And how many times have things came out of our mouths when we heard it, a family member, a friend, a wife, a spouse, a husband, right? Just because we couldn't take it, because we weren't strong enough emotionally. Go ahead, Art.
And not just the emotion of anger, but other emotions that can cause us to speak evil towards our brother or sister as well. We must also learn discipline, self-control, and balance with our mouths, tongues.
Right, balance with our mouths. Go ahead.
With our mouths, tongues, and the words we speak, as we will have to give account for the things we say. Remember, demons are looking to cause offenses, and what better way than by them getting the victory in our emotional weak moments and seducing us to say evil things towards one another.
Right. So we almost finished here. Yeah. We got a little excerpt from an article, then we got a couple scriptures after that. So brother, can you read the title of the article?
The title of the article, Man Fatally Stabbed in Fight Linked to Popeye's Chicken Sandwich.
I know, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous, and that's what we come to. And the brother Zion mentioned this to me, but I didn't know like this was news hot in the press. I didn't know, right? I didn't know that it was this serious. I just thought, I didn't know the man died. I just thought that it was a fight, right? So let's get the little excerpt from the article.
The article reads, a man was stabbed to death in Maryland on Monday in a fight linked to a Popeye's chicken sandwich. CBS Baltimore reports.
Right, and remember something, people, brothers and sisters. Let's examine this title. Man fatally stabbed in fight linked to Popeye's chicken sandwich. And the intro, the lead, it goes, a man was stabbed to death in Maryland on Monday in a fight linked to a Popeye's chicken sandwich. CBS Baltimore reports. Right? That's making a mockery of us. Did you know that? The way that it's worded and phrased. So know that, number one. Go ahead, Art.
The stabbing happened outside one of the fast food chain's restaurant in Prince George County, police said.
And I haven't seen the interview and anything, but I can guarantee who they interviewed. I already know the archetype. I ain't see anything, but I definitely already know. I could probably even think about the words that were said, right? So go ahead, Art.
Prince George County Police spokesperson Jennifer Dolan said the fight involved two men who were in line for the release of a new chicken sandwich.
And listen to this, because you got to pay attention to how it's worded. I know I'm kind of spinning it, like, but right. It says Prince George County Police spokesperson Jennifer Dolan said the fight involved two men who were in line for the release of a new chicken sandwich. You see how authoritative that word, those words are? You get it? Because they're using all these authority words on something as simple as a chicken sandwich as a mockery. You get the psychology behind it? So this is why we become a mockery and why they clap their hands at thee, you know how I say in Lamentations. Mm-hmm. Because this is the information the other nations get. So of course, it's like, man, what are they doing? They fighting over a chicken sandwich, right? When it probably was more to it, but still. Go ahead.
It appears one may have cut in line in front of the other.
It appears, right? Go ahead.
Donovan said.
Right, it appears one may have cut in line in front of the other. So let's get the commentary.
The commentary reads, so a person lost their life behind a chicken sandwich because they cut in line.
Right, and we're sad to say, especially back in the 90s, I think more deaths were caused by Starter and Nike ever. You know what I'm saying? Because if you had those starter jackets, say you was a target back in the 90s. If you had some Nikes, you was a target. And let's not mention you had on some Jordans. You were a target. And as I said, you was the other one, the aggressor, and had a starter jacket on, had some Nikes, had some Jordans, somebody stepped on your feet, you about to end their life. That's a sad reality, right? Go ahead, Doc.
Very sad times we are living in to where people are this emotional over such small matters where a person can lose their life.
Right. And real life thing that happened. I'm in traffic. I'm scared of road rage people. I'm scared. I'm riding, just minding my business, riding down Garfield, right? Leaving the bookstore. I'm like, I'm happy I got some new books, right? And then I hear this honking going on next to me and this loud cursing. I'm like, what's going on? And I got my windows up and I can still hear it, right? So I see this one girl yelling and cursing, trying to speed up to catch this other girl. I guess she cut her off or whatever the case may be. And then, she starts talking to me at a light. So I'm like, so I roll the window down and she's like, man, did you see her? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, man, she's going about her life. It's not that, she was like, she just don't know. I would have shot her. I was like, whoa. So, hey, these people we deal with, hey, right? So this is the emotional state our people are in. And I don't know if you just be more aware of your surroundings, because you'll just notice like the arguments. If you might witness arguments on the streets or they're just like more violent sounding. Just kind of pay more attention to just the emotional state our people are in. And you might be shocked, like, wow, okay, I didn't know it was this bad. Go ahead, Doc.
We hear, but I'll repeat that. Very sad times we are living in to where people are this emotional over such small matters where a person can lose their life.
Right. And I think it kind of, maybe because it's just not, it's not trendy anymore, but it's probably still going on. But remember, what got real popular, like 2015, 2016, 2017, was reporting how many deaths would happen off of social media. Arguments starting on Facebook or something crazy like that. So it's probably just not trendy anymore, but it's probably still going on. But it's just, that's the emotional times we're living in, it'll be something real small and somebody ends up dead from it. Go ahead.
We're going to Revelations 3 and 10.
And last couple scriptures.
Revelation chapter 3, verse 10. When everyone have it, say calm. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth.
Right. And what does James say? Let patience have a perfect work. Go ahead.
We're going to go over to Luke 21 and 19.
Last scripture.
St. Luke 21, 19. Everyone have it, say calm. And it reads, in your patience possesses ye your souls.
Right. And remember, it might do you some good if you read over, I think is it in Peter? How he explains how your patience is worth more than gold. So, if you're in your spare time, read over that. I think it's 1 Peter's. But that just shows you more. Our patience is so important. Go ahead.
Commentary reads, we are in the hour of temptation, which is the time that every person on this earth will be tested and tried with all temptation imaginable. The lusts and desires of our hearts can cause us to sin, chasing after the things of this world, our will, instead of building our riches towards the kingdom and doing the Father's will. Patience is a key factor in giving us the emotional balance and understanding that to sacrifice the other things of this world now will mean great riches in the life to come.
Right, it says patience is a key factor in giving us emotional balance and understanding. So know that, all right, I got another, that wasn't the last scripture. I forgot to end it with the one scripture. But just know that patience is very important, right? Patience is so important. And we all might think not we all, but some of us might not think we have patience, but really just look back at your life, because we all had lessons from the Most High on how to build up our patience. We might not just have realized that was a lesson right there. For me, believe it or not, I told y'all a part of this story. Believe it or not, get strapped to a board for 8 hours for so long that the back of your head becomes numb. You're gonna learn some patience, right? Because if anybody wasn't here, I had a football accident. I had a bruised spinal cord and a cervical neck sprain. So I was strapped to one of those red boards. Had the neck brace on, all that. But my condition wasn't that, it wasn't fatal. So it just so happened I was in the emergency room with some lady. I don't know what her problem was, but she was just moaning. It was crazy. And then a guy who got in a motorcycle accident, and they had the operator on him. I'm hearing the operation going on. They did the trachea and everything. It was crazy. And I always go back to that. Like, man, if I could sit on a board for 8 hours, that's patience. And then you got other times in your life, where I got, other stuff that happened in my life where I had to learn some patience, right? So we all got these different times in our life. So we might not think that we have patience, but believe it, we do. We've been tried enough already. So we got that patience. We just gotta dig deep and pull it out. Go ahead, Al.
Remember, Paul told us we must run this race with patience. If we lose our patience, it will bring forth emotional instability, causing us to lose balance.
Right, and that's the thing, because those darts, those fiery darts, guess what? It's picking at your patience. And that's what usually it is. And guess what? Losing patience, that's the easy thing to do, because sometimes it just feels good. I think, who said that? Was it Zion? How sometimes those feelings, we just so used to the feelings that it just feels good, and it's just easier to just give in. And hey, I just want to be mad right now anyway, because it's easy to get mad right now. Go ahead, Al.
Causing us to lose balance, causing us to fall, and not be able to possess our souls. There is much more to discuss on this topic. If it be the Most High's will, more parts to this lesson will be coming in the following weeks, as we are just scratching the surface dealing with this particular topic. In the meantime, brothers and sisters, seek, pray for, and learn to have balance in Christ Yeshua, so that we can conquer our emotions while living in these unstable times.
Right, so one last scripture, and then we'll give the Shabbat Shalom. It's in Sirach chapter 1. And this is a very simple scripture. And it'd be the most simple scriptures that be so dense with wisdom. And this is one of those scriptures that it wasn't even highlighted, but guess what? It was surrounded by other highlights. But the Most High take blinders off of you, depending on the situation you are in your life, where you'll read things a million times or glance over it a million times, but it was never with the context of your life at the moment. So let's get chapter 1. We can start at verse 16 to kind of build it up.
Chapter 1 of Sirach, verse 16. To fear the Most High's fullness of wisdom, and filleth men with her fruits.
Right, and filleth men with her fruits. The fruits of the Spirit. Go ahead.
She filleth all their house with things desirable, and the gardens with her increase.
Now, key verse right here.
The fear of the Most High is a crown of wisdom, making peace and perfect health to flourish, but which are the gifts of the Most High, and in the large of their rejoicing that love him.
Right. So what's the lesson in that scripture, verse 18? Fear the Most High. Because that peace that we've been searching for, it starts with the fear of the Most High. It says, the fear of the Lord is a crown of wisdom, making peace and perfect health to flourish. And guess what? Both which are the gifts of the Most High. So peace and perfect health is a gift from the Most High. But guess what? It starts with fearing the Most High. So that's the key right there. Come. Because, Babylon gave us all type of routes and paths to try to find perfect peace and health and yoga and all this other stuff, right? No, it starts with the fear of the Most High. And this is just a quick testimony about how the Most High is so merciful and he's just with us. I call, brother, where you at? Zion. Lift your head, sir. I called this brother on the phone the other day. This is only the Most High. I called this brother on the phone the other day, right? He said, I can't talk right now. I'm taking my family to such and such. Mind you, I'm on Lakeshore Drive. I hang up the phone. It had to be like 3 seconds later, I hear this hunk. And I'm like, I'm in my lane, why they hunking at me? I look over, it's him. I'm like, how? I just had to start thanking the Father. I didn't know what I was thanking him for. I just said, thank you. So that was great. All praises for that. So we connected, we are connected. Come. So now you can read the final sentence. Right?
Shabbat Shalom, family.
Right. So, questions and comments? We got Brother McGee.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Deacon, officer, great lesson. Seriously.
Thank you. All praises. All praises.
It's mainly just a comment behind that. Back to like the Popeyes chicken incident. Right. And it's this whole lesson that like really has a lot to do with the comment I want to make, because when we look at the news at night or whatever, or even social media, it's like we have to train our minds not to immediately go to the narrative that they're trying to portray.
Right.
So it was a brother on YouTube that actually kind of gave some dialogue behind that incident, and he said the perfect thing. He said, what frame of mind was those two brothers in before they even came into the Popeyes chicken?
Right.
And it just brought that into that, and then all of a sudden, chicken, black people, this is good. Let's put it on there, And it had nothing to do with that chicken sandwich, which is good, by the way. Just saying, I like it, but that's a whole different topic. But seriously, I found out something about the chicken that I won't eat it anymore. So,
Right, don't bash him, folks. He knows.
Yeah, I know now. So, but seriously, all jokes aside, that we have to stop putting ourselves in that mind, letting them paint the narrative for us.
Right.
Because I was like, wow, now from now on, I'm gonna start looking at the way Babylon portray us and say, okay, there gotta be something more to it. Because it's a purpose behind the way that they're portraying us in the media.
Right.
And we have to, I'm serious, saints, we the ones that have to be able to turn the other cheek and start to pray for that situation in those individuals. So that's how I'm looking at all these situations that I perceive on the news and media from now on.
Right, and to go along with that, I had a passenger the other day, like a middle-aged Caucasian lady, whatever the case may be. I don't know, I'm not a DNA expert, but we riding down Lake Street in the West Loop, and there's this brother who's just screaming, at the train. And I see him, right? But she got her head down on her phone. So quite naturally, you'll want to look, but I'm like, I can't even look over there because I know if I look, that's gonna cause her to look. And because that would be another situation where, without context, you know what I'm saying? That brother's under a curse. maybe even been drugged up or something, we can't just judge him, right? But, you know, with the other nations, when they don't, it's just hard because it be so many times where I'll be riding and it be somebody just flipping out, or our young folks with the pants down, with the music playing loud. I don't even look over there because I know if I look, they're gonna look. And I'll just be just looking straight, like I don't see them at all. They on my hood, I don't see them, you know? So that it goes, we can't play it into the narrative, we can't. Anybody else? Yeah, Brother Jarrell.
Shalom, shalom, family. Once again, great lesson, Deep and Officer. One scripture I wanted to add in the spirit of the lesson was Leviticus 19:15, where it says, "Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty, but in righteousness shalt thou judge thy neighbor." And with the example you gave, Deep, like, just one thing we have to remember is, like, it's easy to say, oh, you know, that was nothing to a stranger, you know, like, oh, just keep it chill or whatever. But what happens when it's, you know, like your friend or family member, and, you know, you just want to jump behind them and say, oh, yeah, man, they shouldn't have did that to you. But we got to have that same mindset, regardless of who it is, like, hey, it's not that big a deal, you know, just stay in that spirit always, regardless who's, you know, offended like that. So
And I'm assuming it'll get uploaded, but that's goes along with the class the officer did last night. We can't be accomplice to sin, and we got to be righteous judges and use some discernment with whoever's dealing with what or whoever's doing what. So right on with that. Anybody else got any questions? We got Sister Chantel over there.
Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, so I wanted to make a comment. I wanted to give some information to the body. I think it's useful, helpful. But I had a question also, okay? So before I make my comment, I would like to just get a little bit of clarification. It's not related to, this question is not necessarily related to what the lesson which we had today.
Okay.
But I still need some clarification if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so I would like to know, is there any eating in the sanctuary? Now, I don't eat in here and neither does my daughter, but you know, we see others do it, and my daughter kind of thinks I'm being unfair to not let her do it. So I'm wondering, you know, if there can even eat anything such as a fruit snack, if that's permissible, or is there anything that is permissible and anything that is not, or is it just straight no eating in the sanctuary, period?
Okay, so first of all, and not to bash or anything, but these are the type of questions that we do not want to encourage during the Q&A, right? But to answer your question directly, my wife makes sure she makes the announcement every week there's no eating in the sanctuary. So if anybody is eating, you must be doing a very good job, because I usually don't see anybody eating, but you must, I don't know if people have been eating. If you do eat, shame on you, no. But not to make light of it, but no eating in the sanctuary. So you know, you're not being hard on your daughter, you follow the rules that gets announced. But, you know, that's, like, questions like that, you know, you can just pull one of us. And if anybody got any other type of questions about the rules, the functions, the order of the church, you know, just pull one of the officers or me to the side before or after service starts, because the Q&A, we definitely want to get into the mode where it can stay in the spirit with the lesson.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay, and so now this is also, so this is something that I want to say. You know, one of my favorite pastimes is research.
Okay.
And so I think it's helpful for the body to know that there's something that's being used in our food, the processed food, of course, and it's called heck. And what heck is, it is
Can you spell
human,
that real quick?
I believe it's HEKC. And I know it's bad, that's, it seems like it should be HECK, but what it is it's human embryo kidney cells.
Right.
Okay? And so they're using this in a lot of the food today. And that also, we know we're living under the curses. That's one of the things that causes these different emotions, is the food that we're eating. And they're mostly from aborted fetal tissue.
Right.
Okay. The other thing is that when we're reading our labels of our food, there's things in it like red 40 and yellow 6 that's pork. Okay. Now I didn't know that was pork. It was brought to my attention as I went to pick up something that had it in there. By a friend of mine who's allergic to pork. So she happened to know what the red 40 and all of that was. I think it's the number blues as well, but I haven't done enough research on that one to know it. So I just wanted to make mention of that. We have to be very conscious in it's in the drinks too. Okay, the Mystics, those kinds of drinks, it's in those too. Now there is a website called stopthecrime.net. And on that website, it documents all of the companies, the corporations, the fast food restaurants that use heck, and Popeyes is one of them.
Okay.
So that accounts for, because we're eating the emotions that child felt when it was murdered. Okay, so that's what witches do, and that's why they do it, but we do it unknowingly. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
That's a great comment. Thank you for that. And it's something about it too. Hear me the right way when I say this, right? And I'm not saying that we all need to storm into Whole Foods and start shopping. That's not what I'm saying here. You will see a different atmosphere and a different thought process from the people who shop at Whole Foods versus the people who shop at, Food for Less, whatever the case may be. And I'm knocking anybody if you shop at Food for Less, I'm just saying. And you should go inside if anybody, this is another, I'll be coming up with these social experiments, right? When you get a chance, just go inside a fast food restaurant and sit down and observe the emotional whatever other people in there. It's gonna be quite different from Maestro Steakhouse down there off Grand. I can guarantee you. And what I'm saying is, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because once you get the young lady who might buy her clothes, when you see them on the mannequins at the place where we street preach in front of on Saturday Night in Cottage, the young lady who buy her clothes from there or from the beauty supply, buy those little tights and stuff, she has a different outlook on life. She has a different state of emotional security or insecurity versus the woman who's going to shop at a more, I'm not saying, I'm not promoting brands or anything. I think you get what I'm trying to say, right? Because what you get is something called, a very technical name for the type of food that some of us eat, still, that I need to get rid of, and when we was in the world, it's a technical word for it. Slave food. Slave food. And my brother Lil Dawud put me on to that. Many years ago when we was in the car, I remember he was like, man, we still eating this slave food. I'm done with it. We gotta be above that, the slave food, like the wipe this tear, Harold's, the mouth sauce, the stereotypical food that they so-called will label us to eat, like the Popeyes, and shopping at certain stores and stuff like this. Because, very interesting, there's no such thing as a dollar store in certain neighborhoods. There's no such thing as a currency exchange in certain neighborhoods. Know that. Because certain things just kind of, what you call, continue the stereotype and continue the type of thinking that you're in. Do we need to go to Neiman Marcus? No, I'm not saying that. Because we can be more self-sufficient with things too. Start cooking more at home and things like that versus just relying on the slave food. And if you are gonna eat out, choose some better quality food then. Nothing wrong with eating out either.
Yassles.
Right? A home favorite for the church. We probably pay their rent. No. What's this? All right. Let me stop going on tangents. So anybody else got any questions or comments?
Come on, I got something to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. But to follow up what the sister had, in the men's meeting that came out with the brother Micah Allah and a few other brothers felt it, and I'm pretty sure the sisters feel it too, that we're gonna have some workshops about better eating habits and knowing how to identify, the bad ingredients and stuff like that. Go ahead,
Oh, okay, come on. I always wanted to say, like, just to piggyback on what brother, Tony was saying, like how the way they filter certain things to make us, they put us in this totally like dumbfounded position to make us think that we follow all these stereotypes that's produced. Because if y'all didn't see the past broadcast of the Bacard did, the slave indoctrination, and Elder Lloyd brought out a key point, how the way, like in every slave movie, it's always a church scene. Yeah. So they can demonize more church in black communities just so you can look at that like, yeah, they use church to enslave us. That's why a lot of our people, when we street preaching, they always saying, man, that Bible enslaved us. So why you reading something that's enslaving us? Because, things that's produced through visual production is what's totally entertaining us and thinking that's the way that we should observe things. Like, like that. The alpha, beta consciousness and this and that. That's the stuff that they put in front of us and be like, all right, this is something I gotta get away from because that's what's causing me to be here. And I understand that the curses and our forefathers putting us in this position is what got us in. So I just wanted to say something like that, and then how the way we react that way too. We'll see one thing and then we believe it. And then if anybody else come and say something to us about it, we're like, nah, bro, what you saying is wrong. We go off on emotion. Like, nah, bro, just get out of here because I don't know something. I know I've done it before too. So it's like, this is understanding in this truth how to think for yourself more and start, actually applying, better thinking skills and not going off straight emotion.
Right. That's all I got to say. That was good, man. That was good.
Just about the emotional part, social media is very good at stirring up emotions in our people and just in the world, period. But also, one thing I noticed was that with the Black church, with church period, they use emotion. One thing that my mom would always say when I tried, anytime I would bring the truth to her, it's, it worked for you. Well, it worked for me. This works for me. This works for me. And I noticed having been a praise and worship leader in a Christian church that, we feed off of emotion. Like if people aren't connecting with the songs, they're just gonna sit there and sing. Or there could be, the song could have wonderful lyrics, but if the singer isn't singing it correctly, people are just, but we can connect with the emotion of it. And one thing that happened when my husband and I left the church, after we had told the pastor that, Jesus wasn't the name, we tried to go back and visit, after praise and worship just to, see what was going on. But we noticed when we hit the parking lot that the pastor was singing a song, Jesus is Lord. And he was singing that song with all of his heart because he needed to believe it. He needed to believe that was the name. And, it was just the emotion of it. Like you can feel the emotion. And that's one thing that we connect on as a people is with emotion, even with dance and, all of the arts. They call it worship arts, and they'll use lights and sound and everything else just to get people to connect to the emotion of it. So, we have to be careful of that, just not to go off of emotions. If there's a mob of people, not to just go off of what they're saying as truth because it's a mob, because it's a collective people. Stop and think for yourself, is this really how I'm feeling, or is it because there's a mob going, am I feeling it because everyone else is feeling it and I'm feeling that energy?
That's a great point too with the how what you call the service is structured. It's structured in a way to keep the people engaged. And you can do this research too, but I made this statement. It wasn't connected to anything. I can't remember why I said it, but like if you do the research, all the Ivy League schools, they originally were schools to teach people how to preach. And that's back when they perfected on how to structure a sermon, how to structure a service. So it's just been mastered for the past 500 years. Yep.
You made a comment earlier about how when we let our kids watch TV or play games all day, how it influenced them, and you're basically giving your children over to somebody else's ideas. It's the same thing when you send them to school.
Yep.
You send them to school trusting that the school system and the teachers are going to teach them, but now I'm doing behavior therapy in a school where there's no consequences. And they're saying that the kids have severe emotional disorders. So I've been telling them lately, if you go to the hood and you look around, those people, they experience so much trauma, but they make a choice on how they're going to behave. And there's consequences. So we're raising a whole generation with no consequences. What type of children are you breeding? And I have had this conversation with the high-ups. You're paying a lot of money for me to be here to do what? To deal with the emotions of children. They don't have consequences. And it's not just the children in my program. I observed the whole school before I even blew my trumpet, because it can be an issue, especially in a more suburban school. And all the teachers are frustrated, and some won't speak out. They'll just do what the school corporation wants them to do. So it's very disheartening watching the children be affected in the last days. And these kids really need help, really need direction, not just from a teacher, but from their actual parents. And they're not getting it. So protect the integrity of your children, and you be the influence of them.
And she's definitely right. And I want to say, I lost my train of thought real quick because I was thinking about 50 different things. So I'll just hold it. It'll come back. Anybody else? Yeah, real quick. Yep. That's what I was going to say. It's like a self-feeding loop. It's a cycle that just feeds itself. Because, and Elder LaCroix speaks about it a lot on Blog Talk, how, you got the parents that's dealing with so much stuff, and they use the school as a daycare center to get a break. So it's like a catch-22 situation. So those of us who are aware of that cycle, we definitely got to preach that and let the people know, hey, this is a cycle that we in, and it's designed this way. Go ahead,
What I wanted to say is, what they're trying to do is go good with the lesson. Is they're trying to trigger us and get us to do things that they think if they make a certain move, we'll kill each other. That'll give them a reason to kill us. Prime example, when, what's his name, Laquan McDonald, when they had his trial, I was working in the South, in the Magnificent Mile. And what happened was the day before they was gonna have the protest, you had newscasters coming to my building where I worked at, and they were setting up cameras. So I asked them, I was like, what's going on? It was like, well, tomorrow, this area here is gonna be ground zero. So I said, what do you mean? It's like when they do the protest, people gonna be doing all type of stuff tomorrow. I was like what? He was like, you name it, stabbing, shooting, killing. So I was like, really? So that's what they thought we was gonna do. The next day for the protest, I noticed it was snipers all on the roof. I mean, the protest was from Chicago Avenue to like Roosevelt. They had snipers on every roof from Chicago Avenue all the way to Roosevelt. Watching, police everywhere. So I stood there and I watched what was going on. You should have seen the disappointment in people's faces when they didn't get as rowdy as they thought they was gonna get. They didn't. So, you know, as we go forward, know that the Most High is still working with people on his own. So, because, yeah, I expected them to act a fool too with the people they had out there with them. I was scared. I was like, I hope they don't, and they didn't. So, you know what I'm saying? We still growing, but we still there at the same time. That's all I want to say.
And more and more our people are starting to wake up and not falling for the trick bag, how they call it. Because they're expecting us to react a certain way, but we're starting to catch on to the games more and more. And also, if anybody who does not know what that means, Chicago Ave to Roosevelt, that's 20 blocks. Chicago Ave is 800 north, Roosevelt is 1200 south. So you had 20 blocks of snipers. Who we don't know who else was in the buildings too, and other strategic points, right? Anybody else got anything? Any questions or comments? All right. So anybody here for the first time? Got the brother in the front. Yeah. So all you got to do is just stand up, brother. Let us know who you are, how you came about. How you end up coming here and everything. Because I heard from the grapevine that the brothers should see you out street preaching. So, yeah. No, you just stand where you at. Yep.
My name Tim. I stay in the area.
Can't hear it.
Can y'all hear me? My name Tim. I stay down the street. Yeah, I'm on like 79th. That's where I'm at. I've been knew about the place, but I ain't knew that long. Cause it used to be like another program.
Caps.
Yeah. So I ain't know when did y'all build this? When did y'all come?
I want to say May.
Yeah. In May.
Yep.
So yeah. Cause I tried to. I came by the door like two times, but I ain't get in. But now I got in this time.
You in?
Yeah, man, that's it, really.
All right.
Anything else? Can
Anybody else for the first time? Nobody else here for the first time? Okay, I thought I saw like a young. Yeah, I thought I saw a new young fella, yeah. No, I know Jeff's son. I thought I saw another young fella in here earlier, but okay. Yeah. Is that the brother with the deep voice who read? That was your cousin. Okay, yeah. All right, we got Lil Rise right here. Let's give him a mic.
My name Travis. My uncle.
Uncle Ross?
Yeah.
All right. That's good, man. That's good. All right. Let's move forward with service. We'll start with.
Really breaks my heart.
Cause we've been lied to, misled for years, calling out to the most high on this trail of tears.